Hello and welcome to another episode of Two Chicks, One Show, where we break down a currently airing show, an episode a week as it airs. My name is Trisha Ennis. She is Kate Calabro. We are your two chicks. And this week's one show, as it has been for the past 4 weeks, I believe, is Marvel's Agent Carter, Season 2, Episodes 6 and 7. We are nearing the end.
Yes, this is the first 2-week two-parter that's going to be happening. It happened this past week, and it will be happening next week. There'll be another 2 episodes back-to-back. But let's talk about this week. So these were probably the 2 most juiciest episodes that we've got so far this season. Peggy kind of goes full-on rogue, and Whitney Frost kind of goes completely batshit crazy. And it was beautiful, and Dottie is thrown into the mix, which makes it even more better. So Peggy comes up with this plan to kind of go undercover and figure out what's happening with Whitney Frost. And the only problem is Whitney Frost knows who Peggy is, and there's no disguise in the world that's going to be able to cover up Peggy Carter. So who else to go in and spy on Whitney Frost and get a vial of her blood that will help Dr. Wilkes become somewhat permanently not invisible, then break Dottie out of jail and bring her in on the case. And in this great kind of sequence where Dottie and Jarvis kind of go to this dance party / election party / meeting of the members of the what do they call it? The committee, the council. It was just great. Everything about it was just great. But it doesn't end up great for Peggy because Whitney Frost kind of goes completely crazy, kills half of the council, including her husband, and now is like in charge and kidnaps Dottie. So that's how the first episode essentially ends. Then we move into the second episode where Peggy now has this feeling of responsibility and needs to get back Dottie. So now it's trying to find Dottie, and Wilkes has finally been able to get the blood from Whitney and like make this weird contraption that was very steampunky that will hold him and keep him solid, but only inside, I don't know, science. And Peggy and Jarvis go out to find Dottie because there's a tracker and a Tiffany's choker. A lot happens, and tragedy then strikes at the Stark compound, and it kind of broke all of our hearts.
Yes. There's a lot that happens in these 2 episodes. These are easily the 2 best episodes of the season so far. They're excellent. But all the while, all of this back and forth of the spying is happening, Peggy's love life is also in the middle.
Yeah, I didn't even want to talk about that.
I'm
stupid.
I think it's fun. Even though I totally launched into the series going, I don't care who Peggy dates, I kind of think this is fun. So she's now in a triangle of all triangles. But let's start at the beginning with the return of Dottie. They essentially, Peggy, not only can Peggy not infiltrate the Arena Club because Whitney knows who she is, but she also is a little incapacitated.
Yeah, she's injured from falling and getting
skewered. She was skewered.
Yeah, skewered pretty much. So she isn't moving very fast. So she can't, like, if something were to happen, she wouldn't be able to fight them off, pretty much. So they break out Dottie, which was really easy.
Yeah, it was.
Considering she's like the most dangerous person like the SSR have ever dealt with in years since post-war, and she was like able to get out like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Peggy goes in, disguises herself as a shrink, and breaks Dottie out right underneath Chief Johnson's nose. Chief Johnson's nose. I can't remember anymore. And brings her back to LA and has her infiltrate the Arena Club with Jarvis until Jack Thompson shows up.
Yeah, with an evil Red Foreman. And now I know what his name is. It's Vernon. Which fits perfectly for this character, Vernon. I feel is a great name. Yeah, so the council, I guess it was the same club that they always meet at. It was a campaign meeting, a campaign meet and greet kind of thing for Chadwick. And Chadwick lets Whitney know that at the meet and greet cocktail party, the council will be meeting, and they're meeting to talk to Whitney. Like, it's a really big deal. She's going to explain Zero Matter. She's going to show them what she can do and all this kind of stuff. So she's like all excited. We get the first like glimpse of what I guess her ultimate evil alter ego will look like, because she puts like this thing on that's almost like a mask, but it's not. It's like a fascinator, for people that know what those things are. Yes. That covers only like half of her face, like very Phantom of the Opera, but still very glamorous. And Vernon and Thompson are there, and Jarvis isn't really in disguise. Neither is Dottie, and Dottie notices Thompson first, and then she kind of like breaks loose of Jarvis's not control, but like surveillance. Jarvis is wearing these glasses that have audio. They don't have video. They just are audio.
Yeah, and the 1940s. They don't really have micro video.
I was gonna say they don't have HD in his glasses. And she just Dottie disappears, and Jarvis is now just trying to find her. But the funny thing that's also happening besides all the drama is that Jarvis can hear Peggy and Daniel in the surveillance van. And Daniel starts to tell, this is where the love triangle starts to weave in, Trisha's beloved love triangle.
Die hard shipper over here. I can't help it.
And so Daniel starts to tell Peggy that he's no longer with Violet. She called off the engagement and Peggy's like, why would you do that? I'll talk to her, blah, blah, blah. And like Daniel's like, no, she called off the engagement because she thinks I'm in love with you.
And then I realize that they've been broadcasting all of this to Jarvis.
Yeah, and then Jarvis goes, oh! And he's like in a hallway by himself, like in this tux.
He's scandalized.
And he's like, oh my goodness. Like, he's such a gossip girl. I love it. I love Jarvis so much. I remember I was listening to Love Enough Marvel podcast, and it was with Haley Atwell on set, and she said that the second season really is Jarvis's season, and I could not agree more. He is like shining bright like a diamond in this season. I just love him so much.
Yeah, this is definitely the season where they really decided that Jarvis is the comic relief.
Yeah.
So just let him be Jarvis, and he's hilarious, and they really are giving him a lot of stuff to work with this season.
Yeah. So
we're gonna get to that a lot later, where they get to flip him too.
Yeah. So now there's like a lot of things happening at once. Jarvis is trying to find Dottie while making sure that Thompson doesn't find Dottie. Vernon is confronting Thompson about the one thing that's holding him back is Peggy Carter, which I think like Vernon's dislike for Peggy Carter is a little bit extreme. Like, she hasn't done really anything. Like, she's technically on vacation. She's not doing anything. So really the only reason Vernon doesn't like Peggy Carter is because of the council. Because the council and Chadwick. But really it doesn't even make sense in the timeline of him saying this to Thompson, because Whitney didn't like reveal her evil plan. So like I can get it post Whitney like destroying half the council and destroying Chadwick, why Vernon is so interested in Peggy because Whitney's so interested in Peggy. So I'm not really understanding his hatred for her prior to that.
Part of me wants to just go the easy route and say he's just being sexist, and it's that he doesn't want, because Peggy she's not just female, she's also really good at her job, and she's loud.
Yeah.
So I think she might reflect badly on Thompson in the sense that there's a woman who's doing his job better.
Yeah, and like, I mean, Thompson corrects Peggy, but he doesn't correct her, I guess, the way Vernon would like him to.
Yeah.
So, so Jarvis is kind of left to like pick up all the pieces during this fiasco of a surveillance / collecting Whitney's blood. They figured out that if they have Whitney's blood, they'll be able to use it to create a contraption that would allow Wilkes to become solid, I guess.
They essentially have to build some sort of containment field
Mm-hmm.
so that it will keep him essentially corporeal. And they can use Frost's blood because she is basically made of zero matter at this point.
Yeah.
So we need a sample of that zero matter in order to make him whole again, at least in a contained field.
Yeah. So
Dottie has to go and get some of her blood without touching her.
Yeah. She has to get close enough for her to stick like this little, it almost looked like an EpiPen, but like more science. Yeah. Without Whitney realizing. So of course, where do you go to get close to a woman at a public event? The ladies' bathroom.
Where we would all go. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, so Dottie does get the blood, but Dottie, being Dottie, is very curious about what's going on. She's not just going to do what Peggy tells her to do and then like go back to Jarvis and leave. So she follows, she snoops around, she finds where the council meetings like room, and she like hides in a closet.
Naturally.
And she sees everything that goes down. Before this even happens, there is one moment that I just thought was one of Jarvis's and probably one of the writer's best moments. Was Jarvis was told to distract Thompson, and Thompson after Vernon like just kind of reamed him for Peggy, is standing by the bar like drinking some whiskey or bourbon or something. It was brown liquid, so I don't know. And there's this girl standing at the bar, and she goes, "Oh, you really should smile more." And then all of a sudden Jarvis just pops in, and then Jack's like, "What?" But I thought it was funny, like a kind of like almost a gender reverse kind of situation where the girl is telling the guy that he should smile more. So I thought like that was it tickled me.
That was fun. And I also, and you like Jarvis like coming in from the side. But one of my favorite lines of both episodes actually was very early in the episode when Peggy first sits down with Dottie, and she says, Dottie says, "You think 6 walls can hold me?" And Peggy's like, 6? And she goes, "We're in a cube, Peggy, keep up."
That was pretty good too. I really liked Dottie in these 2 episodes.
I really like Dottie in general. She's she's definitely on par with Peggy, like wit-wise, and there's a reason why these 2 characters sort of like are almost drawn to each other as an adversarial kind of way.
I mean, I think, and I've said it in previous episodes, I think there's like this mutual respect between Peggy and Dottie that even though they're like supposed to be like arch rivals, they're still like when she does something. Yeah. So anyway,
so Whitney goes bonkers.
Pretty much.
Yeah, she's in the room with the council, and she's sort of like, she's supposed to be sort of making her case to them, but she's really not interested in them allowing her to do what she wants. She just wants to run the whole thing. So they also sort of set it up as a trap because she ends up getting hooked by like dog catcher things around her neck. And it turns out that she doesn't actually need to touch people in order to turn them into zero matter and suck them into her hands. She just needs to get really angry. So she's being like hooked by these people, and like they're trying to put her into a cage of some sort. And she ends up just disintegrating the 2 guys who have her. And of the 7 council members, 4 of them, leaving 3, if you're counting, including the guy who Peggy tricked with the head memory eraser last episode. And then she turns on her husband and kills him.
Yeah, which I mean, we all saw it coming, but it's kind of like, Chadwick, you're such a fucking idiot. Like, I was just like, what did you think was going to happen? But then, like, part of me was like, I think Whitney knew the whole entire time that was going to happen.
Yeah, she's too smart to not think it was a trap.
Yeah, because, like, when she turns to Chadwick and she starts, like, crying, like, how could you? I was like, is she, like, really upset by it, or is she just putting on, like, a performance? Because sometimes I can't tell because she's supposed to be, like, an actress. So I'm like, is she really upset that she just killed Chadwick, or no? Like, it's one less person she has to deal with. She's not upset
that her husband was dead.
Yeah.
She might have been upset that he did, in fact, betray her. She might have been holding out some sort of hope that even though she was pretty sure it was a trap, maybe it wasn't.
Yeah, maybe.
We don't really know. She hasn't really shown a lot of human characteristics.
No.
So she kills most of the council, and the rest, because they don't want to die, are willing to take orders from her. And so now
Well, she makes it seem like she selected. That's why I think she always knew it was a trap, because she said, "I selected you to remain on the council because I need your expertise. And once I find no more need for you, then you're pretty much dead." That's pretty much what she tells them.
yeah.
So now she's running the freaking show. Whitney Frost is running the show. And something happened. There was a fight, and it was with, I guess, Dottie tries to escape, and they find her, and then she's fighting off security. A security guy lands on the surveillance van, so they know that something's happening.
Mm-hmm.
She drops the vial of blood, but then she ends up being kidnapped by Whitney Frost. But Jarvis finds the vial, so pretty much like mission accomplished, minus we lost Dottie, one of the most dangerous.
We lost our spy.
Yeah. And that's how the episode ends. It kind of ends with like, well, Vernon is now like, I guess, Whitney's direct liaison. And he's he's told Thompson that he needs to control Peggy again. Jarvis then warns Thompson that this isn't really, you like to pretend like this is your crowd, but this really isn't your crowd. And then it ends with Whitney opening a trunk that they stuffed Dottie in as the package that had to be delivered.
Right.
The end.
And then we get into our second episode, which begins with fixing Dr. Wilkes.
Yeah.
So they, meanwhile, back at the ranch sort of deal, Anna has been hanging out with Wilkes.
You finally get Anna Jarvis in both episodes. And I was kind of, I was a little
suspicious.
Huh?
Were you suspicious? Because I was suspicious.
No, I was kind of upset with how they were portraying her in the first episode. Like, she's like, I wasn't, why were you suspicious?
Because of the way they brought her back in, I sort of knew where they were going. Early on in the first episode, she makes comments like this is probably what you mean, about her being kind of worried about her husband.
Yeah.
And like really she'd like, okay, so basically in the very first scene of the episode, Peggy is like getting her wound redressed and getting up, and Jarvis is helping her with this, and they're very nonchalant about how she basically almost died.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Anna is very concerned, naturally, and she's asking, does it hurt? And Peggy says, only when I move or breathe or eat.
Mm-hmm.
And Anna looks very concerned about, like, obviously she's very concerned that maybe this had happened to her husband, and she makes comments later on about how she kind of wishes that it had stayed a mystery. Like, what her husband does with Peggy, she'd rather not know because now she's worried all the time. So I kind of knew where it was going to end up for her.
Yeah, I like how they transitioned it into this episode 7, but in episode 6 they made her kind of what they didn't introduce her as. She almost seemed like she was like getting upset with what Jarvis was doing, and that was kind of bothering me.
I agree, but I also think they did one good thing that I was worried up until a point. Like, it looked like they were making her kind of worried, and that she was going to be like, you need to stop doing this. It's too dangerous. They never did that. She ended up being, no, you want to do this. You need to do this. This is what you have to do. I'm going to be worried, but that's my problem. Yeah.
But she actually like made like a speech to Jarvis in the 7th episode, but in the 6th episode they didn't mention anything. So but it was still rubbing me the wrong way. I'm like, this isn't Anna Jarvis to me. Like, this, like, I don't like how they portrayed her as such a strong woman, and now all of a sudden she's like not. I don't know. It just bothered me a little.
And I can see why it almost bothered me. It borderline bothered me up until the point where they then made her acknowledge the fact that she doesn't have control over what her husband does. He's going to do what he wants to and needs to do. She understands that. And if she's concerned about it, then she can say something to him, but she can't stop him.
Which I'm happy that they did in the 7th episode, because I was not liking the lingering in the shadows and in the windows, like just watching. It's like, okay, they have to address. If they hadn't
been back to back, I think it might have been different.
Yeah. So yeah, if you had if I had a week in between them, I would be really pissed.
Yeah. But I think they did because, and I assume they knew this was the air schedule
Mhm.
of these 2 episodes, so it worked for me, and I wasn't concerned beyond, up to the point where she actually then alleviates my concerns. And I was like, oh, okay, no, I like where this is. It's
Mhm.
still definitely going down the you're about to get horribly injured path, um, but anyway, but it does give Anna a chance to sort of like hang out with Wilkes,
Which was so cute. I
which
think it was
was
really cute.
and
She's
it does.
learning how to do stuff.
Sorry,
What did you say?
I said it does give us the Anna that we got used to.
Yeah, I mean, she's learning how to do stuff in the lab. She's, because Wilkes can't touch anything, he guides her through like doing like a tube and knob kind of. I don't know what scientifically you talk about it, but like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, she basically becomes his hand. So like she helps design the containment field
Mm-hmm.
and helps us do a bunch of stuff. So they get the blood back to the lab, and Wilkes and Anna have already designed the thing that they need to make. So they build the steampunky thing with all of the tubing, and put it all together. Meanwhile, Wilkes sort of notices the vibe between Daniel and Peggy, because while they were in the surveillance van, after Daniel said she thinks I'm in love with you, they sort of like almost have a kiss before the dude falls on top of the van.
Yeah.
So there's a vibe now, and this is where the triangle comes into play, because Wilkes is obviously getting a little bit jealous. So that when
I don't remember that. I don't remember
that? No,
I don't remember Wilkes and Daniel being in the same room in the second episode.
I'm almost positive, because I remember thinking, oh, he knows what's going on and he's jealous, because the second they turn on the containment field and he becomes real again,
Yeah.
he kisses Peggy.
Yeah.
And he does it because he wants to sort of like,
while like Jarvis and Anna are standing there.
yeah, and Peggy's a little off put by that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought it was funny, and I thought it was funny. Anyway, so Wilkes is now corporeal. He can touch things, but only, I mean, he can stick body parts outside of the field, but he can't
I don't really understand.
outside of the field, because he reaches out and grabs Peggy and kisses her.
Yeah.
So he's able to stick like his face and his arm outside.
I don't know. It's weird. Like I said, some of the science stuff doesn't make sense to me in this season. So
yeah, but it's also completely made up science. So
yeah.
What can you do? But anyway, so now that he's whole, they decide they need to rescue Dottie.
Mm-hmm.
So they like formulate this whole plan, and the entire time Peggy's like, yeah, it's a trap.
Yeah. What I thought was interesting was Peggy and Jarvis, as well as Daniel, are very concerned about getting the tracker back was on Dottie's necklace, so they could, find Dottie and rescue her. And there was this one moment where Wilkes gets really, really like angry about it. He's like, "Why would you want to find someone that's betrayed, our country and blah 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 and all this kind of stuff?" And Peggy goes and simply just says, "Well, I'm responsible for her. I'm responsible for what happened. And, I need to find her and I need to, put her back like in prison." And like, I thought for a brief second, like Wilkes was going to be like, "Is that the only reason you're helping me? Because you feel responsible?" Because really it is.
Yeah.
I mean, there might be a physical attraction and a flirtation there. But in the end, the only reason Peggy is so concerned about, fixing, Wilkes is because she feels responsible. He was on a mission with her when this happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if there's any hidden kind of thing there. I wish he would have said something like that, but he didn't.
No, and I'm sure maybe something like that will come up in the next couple episodes. We still have 3 episodes left.
Yeah.
Which is a surprising amount of episodes. But yeah, so they're gonna go and rescue Dottie, even though it might not be the most logical thing to do, because it is obviously a trap.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a good thing for them to be doing, but Peggy does feel responsible, not just for what happened to Dottie, but also for anything that could happen afterwards. Like, she needs to put her back in prison. She needs to close the door.
Yeah.
On the whole thing.
So Whitney Frost has kind of created their desert ranch estate as like her new hideout. And I think it's pretty funny that now she's like just went back to her gangster boyfriend.
Yeah.
And he's like supporting her and like almost acting like his men are like the bodyguards. Vernon's there. Vernon tries to break Dottie, which is it's very comical. Like, I mean, the girl survived the red room. There's no way. Like Vernon's like, well, I'm gonna pull out your teeth. She's like, I've pulled out my own teeth. Like she like was not having any of his bullshit. And she wouldn't say anything. And then Whitney comes in. And then I think this just shows you that Whitney is really scary because she scares both Peggy and if she's scaring Dottie, that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
And Dottie spills. I mean, she basically tells Whitney everything she knows of what Peggy and company are doing. And she tells him of Wilkes and she tells Whitney that they needed her blood. So now Whitney's extremely intrigued. And
Yes.
she sets up this whole entire trap for Peggy and Jarvis to kind of walk right into. But I mean, Peggy Carter isn't an idiot and she knew it was a trap.
Right, she knew it was a trap, but what she didn't know was who it was a trap for.
Yeah, which is the big thing.
Which is the big reveal.
Yeah, so this is another crucial Jarvis, Peggy, and Anna moment. Peggy's ready to go off and walk into the trap. Jarvis brings one of Stark's inventions that will blast people away from them if they come and attack, because they're going to be outnumbered.
Right,
and
if the right measurements.
Yeah, and this is when Anna Jarvis has the conversation with Jarvis about how, I mean, she's going to worry about him no matter what happens, but she's never going to stop him from doing it.
And that's when I got all my respect.
Yeah. And then I was like, okay, this is fine now. And so they drive off to the desert and Anna and Wilkes have like a dinner.
They have their $400 bottle of wine.
And they get pretty drunk. Yeah. And it's fun. And while Jarvis and Peggy are driving, Jarvis, like the gossip girl that he is, brings up Peggy's new love triangle.
Yes. Which Peggy was talk about.
Yeah. So stupid. Stupid love triangle. And they get it should also be like, where was Daniel this whole episode?
He was dealing with Vernon.
I remember, but like, oh yeah, so Vernon approaches Daniel at the SSR headquarters in LA and starts asking about the atomic bombs. And Daniel's clearly not a good actor because like he's like trying to be like all confident and suave, but like Vernon knows that he knows where they are. He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So like really pisses off Vernon. So like the next day, well, then people come and beat him up at his house. Classic 40s thing. You don't get what you want, you get beat up. And then the next day, Daniel walks into the SSR and Vernon is sitting in his office and was like, you're on leave.
And Peggy calls the SSR and wants to speak to the chief. And Vernon picks up and she's like,
oh no. So that's the sad saga of Daniel Sousa continues.
Yes.
God.
He still hasn't thrown off his crutch.
No, and said Hail Hydra.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Whatever.
I'm still thinking the last line of this season.
Even if he's not Hydra, I still don't like him. I just don't like him.
I don't either. I like him, but I don't at the same time. Like, I don't think he and Peggy should end up together necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I don't hate him.
Oh, it should be, so...
I think he's kind of a putz, like you say.
He is, like, he's pretty much the definition of a putz. He's just, like... It should be mentioned that Jack is now I'm so confused by Jack, like I was last semester, last season, because Vernon was like, you have to destroy Peggy, and
destroy her, like not just fire her, you have to
destroy her. And Jack's like, I think like you're being a little ridiculous. Like he pretty much says you're being a little ridiculous to Vernon without actually saying those words. And Vernon then realizes that Peggy must have something on Jack. Not that Jack likes Peggy or like, but no, which is true. Peggy does have something on Jack.
Right, but not something that she would. Well, she's mentioned it, but she would never tell anyone.
Yeah, she's not going to be like, oh my god, did you hear what Jack did during the war? Like to every like in the office. Like it's not gonna happen.
Held it over him in the sense of like she's never blackmailed him with it. She's held it over him as like a character thing.
Yeah, because
like
she did mention it.
Yeah,
she did mention it in Sousa's office earlier this season.
Specifically mentioned it only to him.
Yeah.
And not as a, if you don't let me do this, I'm going to go tell some people.
Yeah.
You should really let me do this because, at least these people aren't like this.
Yeah. So now Vernon was like, well, now you have to find something on Peggy. And Jack's like, I'm not going to find anything. Like, she's a Girl Scout. There's nothing. He's like, you better find something. So Jack did one last plea to Peggy. He goes to the Stark estate and was like, come back to New York with me, blah, blah, blah. And she so Peggy is literally rogue now because she was like, well, the workforce is hard right now, but I'll try it. So she pretty much quit the SSR. We completely forgot about that.
He asked where she's gonna go work, and she's just like, I don't know.
She's like, well, it's not a great time to be a woman in the workforce, but I'll make it work. That's literally. He's like, whatever. So now I guess it's over. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if Jack's actually going to try to destroy Peggy.
Yeah, she could easily Howard would pay for her to just live if.
That's what I mean. Her best friend is Howard Stark. I think Peggy Carter's gonna be fine.
Technically, I think her best friend is Howard Stark's butler, but
yeah, but in association. I mean, if you asked Howard Stark, he would say that they're best friends.
Yeah, he would.
He wouldn't ever admit that it's Jarvis, but I mean, Peggy probably wouldn't admit it's Jarvis.
Peggy would admit it's Jarvis to Howard's face.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
So anyway, Peggy and Jarvis infiltrate, sort of. They get stopped because Jarvis inputs the wrong code into the thing that's going to blast people, and it makes it a delayed reaction or something. So they get captured and locked up in the basement with Dottie.
Yeah.
Peggy and Dottie manage to free themselves. Jarvis manages to free himself by taking his shoes off.
Because he's the girls are sitting and Jarvis is hanging from something. And he's all nervous and he's angry at himself because he's like, I put in the right code or the right sequence to have the blast thingy blast off, and it didn't go off. And I think it's just so, and I don't think a lot of people get these references. It's just so happened that we were film majors and I actually wrote a paper on Barbara Stanwyck that I just was thought it was hilarious. He's like, oh no, I put in Barbara Stanwyck's measurements and not, who was the guy?
I don't remember who the other one was.
It might have been Bogart. I don't know. I want to say it was Bogart, but it probably wasn't.
I don't think it was.
And then all of a sudden, a huge blast goes off, and they're able to escape. And Peggy's like, why were we so, why was it so easy? It's a trap. And then Dottie goes, yeah, it's a trap, but you don't know who it's a trap for. Flash to the Stark estate with Drunky McGee and Slosh McGosh. And now they realize that it was a trap set for Wilkes because Dottie spilled the beans on Wilkes and everything about him.
Exactly. And this is the point where now Whitney actually goes to find Wilkes in the Stark compound. And now I'm getting really worried because I'm like, something's going to happen to Anna and I'm really hoping she doesn't get killed.
Yeah, and it was kind of odd because Anna goes to get another bottle of wine.
$1,000 bottle of wine.
Yeah. And Jarvis's home security system goes off. And no, she doesn't think anything of it. She's not alarmed.
Yelling.
Yeah. Well, it's not even. It's him politely, alert.
Politely asking you to leave.
And at first, I'm thinking she's hearing it going off, and she's fiddling with the wine case, but she has a key and stuff. So I'm thinking, oh man, what if she's going to get a gun and she's gonna just she's going to, actually fight Whitney Frost. Anna's going to turn really badass. That's what I thought was happening, but it wasn't.
No.
And it's and for Whitney Frost's boyfriend mobster. Like, they didn't surveillance the property beforehand to know that there was another person besides Wilkes in the house?
I guess not.
Or did
I
they
mean,
just not
kind of
care?
guns blazing. But, you know, so they sort of infiltrate the property, but sort of not. I mean, they literally just go in basically guns blazing without shooting a lot of people. And Whitney Frost confronts Wilkes, and they have like this really intense conversation about Zero Matter and how like Wilkes needs to join forces with Whitney, and Wilkes is not having any of it because of course he's not.
I don't know though. I mean, I think he's a little interested.
Well, yeah, I guess he's a little interested, but he doesn't like go for it. Like, I don't think he would ever actually join forces with her.
I mean, I've said it from the first episode. There's something that I just doesn't add up for me with him. So I don't know. Like, I don't think he wants to be like a villain, but I don't think Whitney Frost also necessarily wants to be a villain. I think they don't know how to handle their own strength, and they're very interested in each other and what each other can do because they both experienced it.
I think that their perspectives differ in this one specific way, though. I think that Whitney wants power.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Wilkes is really actually interested in the science.
Yeah.
To a point where he's almost neutral on the idea. He's like, he might go with her so as to learn more about Zero Matter.
That's what I'm like, that's what I'm thinking is I don't think he's going to be like killing people like how Whitney is, but I think he can't pass up the opportunity to learn more about it.
Yeah, that's fair. Plus, Whitney does do that one interesting thing where she sort of like tells him the secret of how he got hired.
Yeah, which I thought was a great little moment.
Which was like the same reason that any female employee got hired was because you know, it looked good.
Yeah, you like felt like they filled a quota.
Essentially, yeah. So of course, you know, it doesn't really endear him to people. But one other interesting thing that happens is she tries to, when he refuses, she tries to sort of like touch him, essentially, to suck him up, and he ends up sucking the Zero Matter out of her.
Yeah.
Fully corporeal forever. That's apparently, maybe, as far as we know.
I get like his eyes turned black, but it happened when they injected the blood into him too.
Yeah, I think that's just because it's what happens to her too when she assimilates people in Zero Matter. Is that her eyes turn black and then she fully assimilates it and they go back to normal. I think that's just what happens.
I don't know.
I think it's going to end up being that he has to just assimilate her entirely.
Maybe.
I think that where she's like a nuclear reaction, I think it's the opposite, where he renders it inert. Like
he's able to consume it without it destroying him?
Yeah, like where I think if she consumes enough, she reaches critical mass and explodes.
Yeah.
I think that he renders it inert, that he can suck it in and it just sort of, he's fusion where she's fission.
Sure. There's a lot of science in this season that's just like too much for me.
Not so much into the science.
Yeah. Tone it down, nerds.
So now that he's whole again, she can just cart him off.
Yeah, so like
taking him out of the containment
before they bop him on the head and they throw him over her shoulder and they walk out.
And Anna confronts them, which is a really bad idea. Don't confront the bad guys.
Yeah. And you know, at first, like what is Ken Marino's what's his name?
No idea. He's a mobster.
I have no idea what his name is in the show. Whitney's mobster. He like automatically pulls out his gun and is ready to shoot Anna. And Whitney Frost actually goes, "Well, no, we're not monsters."
Yeah, I just killed a whole bunch of people, but there was a reason for that. There's no reason to kill this nice lady.
But I mean, but it's true. Like she goes, I mean, I don't think she's like, she says, I don't think she's really involved in it. There's no reason to harm her. And then Anna makes the mistake of saying, she'll never allow you to get away with it, meaning Peggy. And then they see Jarvis and the car coming up the hill. And so the perfect distraction is for Whitney to shoot Anna because they'll all be too worried about Anna to go follow them.
And she's right.
Which is true. So as they pull up, Jarvis finds his beloved wife on the front lawn bleeding.
Yep. And they take her to a hospital, and it ends with her in surgery and Peggy and Jarvis sitting very worried in a hospital waiting room.
And Dottie escapes again.
And Dottie escapes again, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they pull up to the hospital, and Peggy's like, I'm with the SSR, there's a prisoner in the back, and for God's sake, do not open the trunk.
Yeah. But what was it? She wasn't in the trunk, was she?
Yeah, because they left the door open.
I thought they had her... I don't know, because that's why I was confused, because when they were driving, I thought she was in the back seat, because I thought the cuffs were on, like, you know, like the little hand thing.
I think they put her in the trunk.
Oh, and then maybe they put her in the trunk. Okay.
Because she says, "For whatever you do, for God's sake, don't open the trunk." And then when she goes back out...
Well, she goes back out because someone comes in and screams, "A cop's been shot."
Yeah.
So I don't know. Where does Dottie want to go? Like, what's Dottie...
I don't know that Dottie wants to go anywhere but not back to prison.
I guess because, like, when she's being interrogated by Vernon, she's pretty much like, you failed your mission, you have no country, blah, blah, blah. So.
But at the same time, I think Dottie's way too intrigued by Peggy to ever go very far.
Yeah. I mean, for all we know, she could be, like, next episode open with her sunbathing at the Stark estate. Like, I wouldn't put it past her that she just, like, wasn't like, I'm not staying in trunk. See you at home. So, I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, it's getting juicy. Like, this is, like, the juice of it.
It's definitely the juice. And hopefully there's some more juice in the next 2 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Which will be this Tuesday.
Yeah.
So it was a good couple of episodes.
Yeah. It was, like, the episodes we've been waiting for.
It really was. It was intense and interesting and a lot of good character stuff and then a lot of good story and just a lot of good.
About it?
That's about it. So that'll wrap us up for this episode of 2 Chicks, 1 Show. Agent Carter airs Tuesdays at 9 o'clock on ABC. This show airs sometime after that. We just have 2 more episodes of Agent Carter. And then in April, we will be watching... Well, there's 2 more of these episodes of Agent Carter.
2 more weeks.
3 more. There's 2 more weeks of Agent Carter, 3 more episodes. And then after that, we will be, in April, starting our Outlander episodes again. Where we will not be able to remember anyone's name either. So we will see you guys next time.
Bye.